to welcome everybody here tonight. I'm very excited to be a part of this program. This is one of the Windows to the World events that we're really kicking off this term, and we have Ms. Sarah Spears, who has organized this panel. It's an opportunity for all of us, and again, I'm very happy to be part of this project. We have students, we have GSW faculty. I particularly want to note we have Dr. Philip Stevens, who spoke this morning, gave a wonderful talk about African art. Dr. and Mrs. Blanchard are here. And this is an opportunity to think about the diversity in our own communities. The panel discussion is titled Africa, Perceptions and Misperceptions. And this is an opportunity to really investigate the kind of new global relations that we here in Sumter County are a part of. These global relations are not new. In fact, the history of the slave trade and later black freedom struggles of the 20th century have meant that our region has always been influenced by Africa. We have not acknowledged that, and I think this is part of the process that we are engaged in now to recognize the significance of these global influences in Georgia and around our nation. And our panelists tonight represent that real diversity of experiences that we have. We have a vast array of student and community participants who are going to be talking about their experiences here and helping to shed light on what we understand about Africa. Africa is a massive continent and it has very diverse cultures and peoples. And so our students and our community participants will educate us about their experiences and how this relates to the world that we all live in now in the 21st century. And I think one of the other issues that we want to recognize is that we are part of a global world going forward. And so if there's a history here that we can recognize, there's also essentially a kind of education for the future that our students will help us with. So with that note, let me actually introduce my co-host tonight, Ms. Abby Musa. Her family heritage is from Sierra Leone, and she's going to tell you about another part of tonight's event.
Hello everyone. Before I begin, I want to thank Dr. Blanchard and Mrs. Blanchard for attending the program tonight, and as well as Dr. Stevens. So thank you very much, and welcome to the students as well. Now, before we begin the program itself, as you walked in, some of the ladies sitting back there did hand you some beads and the pipe cleaners. So as the program goes along, there are going to be some stereotypes listed out there. And for every stereotype that you as well thought about Africans, we want you to drop your bead onto your pipe cleaner. So let's say somebody listed up here a stereotype saying people think Africans are always naked. If you thought that, you drop a bead. People think Africans are starving. If you thought that, you drop a bead. So that's how the program is going to go along. For every stereotype that you do here, please do drop your beads. And at the end, you'll have a bracelet or something of a little bracelet with you. So you can always have memorabilia remembering that the stereotypes that were listed here, once you do learn more information about them, that some may be true and some are not true. So thank you guys very much for attending this program, and I hope you guys do enjoy yourselves.
So now we're going to go through our panelists, and I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves and speak for a little bit about their experiences, their heritage, their culture, and also some of those stereotypes or misperceptions about Africa. This is a free-flowing conversation. We're going to start with our panel up here, but I assume by the end of the evening, we want to have conversation from all of you there in the audience as well. So, shall we start over with Stephanie? Let's pass the microphone. So,
Hi, my name is Stephanie.
speak up a little bit more. Okay.
Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I graduated from Keystone High School, and I chose to come to Georgia Southwestern State University because of the nursing program.
In front of your mouth there.
The nursing is my major, and I help keep spot and help people. And both of my parents are from Nigeria. And they came to this country in 1985, and me and all my brothers and sisters were born in Georgia.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Hello, my name. Okay.
Hello, my name is Chifing Azra. I live in Stone Mountain, Georgia, but I was born in Burkina Faso, specifically the city of Ouagadougou. My mother is also from Burkina Faso, but my dad is from Chad. We came to this country in 1998. My dad decided to come because he wanted to get his PhD here, so he actually came here to study. Yeah, I have a twin sister who's also born in Burkina Faso like me, but my little brother, he was born in 1996, the year we came. He was born here. And my major is political science.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abby Musa again. I'm a senior, and my major is political science and minor in history. I am Sierra Leonean. I live in Atlanta, and we came here in 2000 we came here from Gambia, which is another country in Africa, and we moved straight from Gambia to the United States here.
Hello, my name is Dominic, and I moved here 2 years ago with my parents. We live in Lawrenceville, and I came to this school because I love to travel, and it was 3 hours away, so I had to. It was a good idea.
Hi, my name is Shanice Boa. I'm from Ghana. I came here in 2007. I'm an exercise science major. My parents came here in 1968. My dad wanted to find a job over here, so he traveled over here. And me and my sister, I have 6 sisters, but 5 of them are born here, and me and my sister were born in Ghana. But she was graduate. I came here because I wanted to see how people live in the southern are from where I'm used to living. And when I came here, it was an interesting movement or transition to come here. So I just came here to learn and experience new things.
Good afternoon, y'all. My name is Frank Mwangi. I'm from Kenya. I just moved over here a year ago, last year, September. I joined my parents who've been here since '96. My parents are the ones who advised me to join Southwestern. Reasons unknown. But I love it, and I'm an engineering major.
Hello, my name is Nuhu Bello. I'm from Nigeria, and this is gonna be my 4th year in the United States. I was here from 2011 with my dad. He came here as a diplomat, Nigerian embassy, and yeah, I finished from McLean, Virginia. I don't know, my dad liked computers, and I like the same thing, so I came to Georgia Southwestern for a computer science major, and yeah, let's learn more about computers.
Hello everyone, my name is Chika Ananaba. Actually, if you guys don't know, Chika means God is great. My dad has been here since the 70s, and my mom has been here since the 90s. Unfortunately, I was born in Japan. I don't know if that's anybody, but since I was born in Japan, both of your parents have to be Japanese in order for you to actually be from Japan. So my citizenship actually comes from Nigeria, but I'm a citizen here now. So yeah, so I came here because that was the first school that accepted me, and also I like being here in a small town. But I actually live in Atlanta, Georgia. So.
My name is Beatrice Taylor, and in Africa, when you're an older woman like me, every young person is the children. So far, only my children have been talking. Now I'm talking as a parent. I came to the United States because a few years ago, back in 1999, there was a need for foreign language teachers in the United States. So that's how I was hired by school officials from South Carolina, and I taught there for 3 years, and then after that I moved here so that my son could graduate. I brought him to a smaller place so that he could graduate because he was having so much fun in a bigger city. I said, we are going to Americas. He didn't talk to me for 2 years, but he graduated from high school. So I'm very honored to be here today because the same way I have no patience when I go back home and as I hear people talk, making sweeping statements about Americans, and I just have no patience for that. But also I have learned that is no reason for being emotional when you hear sweeping statements about a community. So now I'm learning to handle that, and I was very honored to be able to come here tonight so that I can answer a few questions. I'm not a specialist, but I'm from Africa, and I think you can learn a little something, and I will learn a lot too from all of you. Thank you. I'm from Cameroon. Cameroon is in Central Africa, immediately east of Nigeria.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Oyemade Joseph Oyedeya. Dr. Oyemade Joseph Oyedeya. I am from Nigeria. I came to the United States for the first time in 1972. I was a freshman at the University of Maryland in 1972. After I had gotten my degrees in Maryland, I actually went back to Nigeria to study medicine, and I am a specialist in pediatrics. I practiced medicine for 18 years, and then I retired, and I was looking for a place. I brought my kids back to go to school in New Jersey, and I was looking for a retirement center. When we went on the internet and we saw a place that says Americas, and it says, this is President Carter's hometown. And my wife said, that must be a good place. It's a president's hometown. And this was why we drove all the way from New Jersey looking for Americas. And we went through some small towns and villages, and we thought we were lost. Until we found a place, just like 1749. So I've been here trying to help. I had to come out of retirement because I was asked to help at the high school to teach sciences. I also teach the nurses at the Southwestern at the Technical College on the road. I enjoy helping the kids. I have my own. I have 2 kids. One is an OBGYN specialist. The other one graduated from this building as an RN. And we are all here. My wife is also a medical doctor. She works at the hospital and at the manor. And we share our culture with other people. Every time you ask us a question, we always want to answer you. Especially when people say, do you have a school in Nigeria? And when I said I went to medical school in Nigeria, they looked so strange. This happened, somebody asked me. It's a misconception about you think the school ends here. If we don't have the background, we can't go to school here. I went to high school in Nigeria before I joined college here. And everything has been okay. I'm happy to be here. I was glad that you invited me. If you have any questions that you want me to answer, I will be ready to address them. Thank you very much.
My wife and I had a similar problem coming just from Atlanta, trying to find Americans. Yesterday afternoon, I'm Phil Stevens, as most of you know. I'm a guest of your president and of your university. I teach anthropology at the University of Buffalo. I've been in Nigeria off and on over several trips since the 1960s. In Yoruba country, about 3 years, and in the northeastern part of Nigeria, not where Boko Haram is based, although I am frequently asked about it. Right up here is approximately the location of the Benue River, which is the second major river in Nigeria, and that's where I did my dissertation research. So I have 2 Nigerian homes, and glad to. I have lots of examples of things that will add a bead to your pipe cleaner over many years, and many of them are still alive today. Like, do you speak African?
Well, thank you. Dr. Oyenea and Dr. Stevens raised the issue that we need to address. What are the stereotypes that we have to understand so that we can have a better view of the reality of this large continent? I'm going to actually ask all of you to be very brave and to just tell me what you think the stereotypes are. What are some of the things that you think of when you think of Africa, or what do you think that other people might think of when they think of Africa? Who wants to? Thank you. Go ahead.
That Africa is like a poor country.
That Africa is a poor country.
Africa is a country. There's another one.
Sorry, would any of our panelists like to address either the idea of Africa as a country or the idea of poverty in Africa? Stephanie?
It's off.
I think I should start off by saying Africa is a continent. The little things you see inside of the big continent, those are the countries. And I can honestly say Africa is extremely rich in natural resources such as oil. And yes, it is a third world country, and it's not like, the United States, but not every single part in Africa is poor. No matter where you go in the world, there's always going to be poor parts. Like how you have poor parts in America, but the whole entire country is just not swimming properly.
Dr. Oyenea?
Yes, when you talk about Africa being poor, you need to search for some more information. I will say to you, today, Nigeria is number 8 oil producing country in the world. Nigeria is number 8 customer to the United States. Nigeria has the second largest film producing company, institute in the world. Second to India. They call it Nollywood. It is even bigger an industry than Hollywood here. And you can imagine how people live in Hollywood. So think of how they live in Hollywood in Nigeria. Where you have money to do so many things, the only problem you have is, are those things available? And are people managing them properly? It's a misconception to say that Africans are poor. Even when I came here in 1972, it used to be, the rich Nigerian that is in that dormitory. Because I collected students and would go out, we would always have money, we always have things we want. Africa is not a poor place.
Thank you.
Just to add on to what Dr. O said, a lot of you people, your parents wear diamonds, wear gold, some silver as well. And if you wanted to know, Ghana has a whole bunch of gold. Ghana is a country where if the United States needed some, or if China as well needed some, they do go there. And there's a lot of wealthy Chinese men who go to Africa and try to start their businesses in gold and in the diamond industry. A lot of you guys have heard of the rapper Kanye West, and in Sierra Leone as well as Ghana as well. That's where Ghana is the country where the largest diamond was ever dug up in the whole entire world. And a lot of you may know that it's also known as blood diamonds because so many people lose their lives in producing this precious gem that so many people take for granted. So, and to answer your question, Africa, the continent itself, is not poor. We're very, very rich. We don't have the proper means or ways to actually allocate our wealth and to better do it, because so many other first world countries, as many people might know it, come to Africa and misuse our resources and the things that we do have. So if we knew how to do better with it, then perhaps Africa will be a stronger continent than it is today, just to answer your question.
Now, I'm going to say it was very brave to raise a stereotype for us to discuss. Anyone else want to throw out well, I think someone else, and then we'll come back to you.
It was just a comment. I wasn't saying.
Oh, no, we're not.
I was saying that was a stereotype.
No, we're just answering. You know, that's what the discussion is. You ask a question and we give you our version, like our
I just
answer.
didn't want y'all to think I was saying.
Oh, no,
This is why I said you have to be
fine.
brave. You're going to tell us about the stereotypes that you think other people might have. I know there was a hand in the back.
Yeah, one of the things that I hear, I'm a political science major, so it really breaks my heart, is that like Africa was uncivilized prior to Europe coming over there.
I hope I addressed that issue this morning.
Let's give her more details.
There's a deep and rich history that Dr. Stevens talked about in his lecture. Would someone else like to address that in their own histories or experiences?
Okay, well, personally, my family, we actually are descendants of a royal family. Like, we actually had governments, kingdoms and stuff, so it wasn't uncivilized. People ran stuff, you know. And, yeah, my family is personally descended from the king family. So, even though my country, we don't use kings anymore, we actually have a president just like you guys in parliament and stuff. We still, like, carry on the tradition. Like every year we would have like a ceremonial remembering the king descendants and stuff. So it wasn't uncivilized before Europe came. It actually had governments and stuff. It's not, maybe not the same as here, like strict, like you guys have it, but it still had governments.
Many highly developed civilizations that produced very sophisticated art. Some of you who missed my talk this morning, I've given my slides to the art history department and a copy of my book to your library, so you will have those resources. Another point that I didn't make, which falls along the same question, is the Europeans had a very difficult time accepting that all of that art was produced in Africa by Africans, by African skill and African ingenuity. The materials may have come from somewhere else, and the basic technology may have come from somewhere else, but the industries were indigenous African, and some of the most sophisticated art in the entire world. So that's another myth, and thank you for that. Africa was not civilized before Europeans came. In fact, Africa today is still recovering from the colonial period.
I just want to draw your attention about what does that mean to be civilized, because if you're trying to put the values, your own values onto another people, of course it's going to seem like they're not civilized, but they have their own civilization, and what we're trying to do as global human world citizens is to have that respect. Just because a civilization is different from another one doesn't mean they're not civilized and they need someone to come and civilize them. We all have our civilization. All we need is the respect for one another. I think that's what civilization is.
When you say uncivilized, I wanted to try to get to understand like exactly what specific things do you think would make something uncivilized. I think when you have intruders that come to your homeland and you're ready to deprive people from where they're from, there's going to be problems later on in the future. So if we are uncivilized, it's probably because it was, it was probably because we had people come to our country and, take people from it and just kind of mess up the natural flow of how things were supposed to go. But for the most part, it's pretty civilized. I mean, you can take showers and go to school. So that's pretty civilized, if you ask me.
Just like you guys have presidents, we have a president. Just like you guys have senators, we have senators. Just like you guys vote on bills, we vote on bills. Unfortunately, America doesn't put these positive things on the TBC. I mean, I can't really blame some people because because they don't show those things. Africa as a continent is very civilized. So there's a lot of things that go on in there, but they don't want to show you guys. They want to show us being naked. They want to show us being on parks, but no one even lives like that. So I just think that some people need to do some research and really look, because it's just like here. We have huge malls. We have a lot of big buildings, like a lot of things. We actually did a program at ASAD where we showed one part of Africa, like, okay, which part is, an African house and which part is an American house, and you believe there's some ugly houses here compared to what we have. We have mansions, we have a lot of things. So I just think a lot of you guys need to do your research and actually travel, because Africa is not what you guys think.
So adding to the civilization topic, well, I'm from northern Nigeria, and so for the most part, northern Nigeria has it's like a monarchy type, let's say like the England type rulership. So it's like we have a king, and a king has his, let's say his parliament, his cabinet, and the police that regulate everything in this. Yeah, that picture shows that. So the king is sitting on the throne, and mostly they had the king, but then when Islam influenced the region, like it became more kind of civilized. Islam brought, let's say, writing, schooling, and all that to the region there. So just know that, yeah, there was civilization, like people lived kind of civilized, well dressed, reading, goes to school, like hygiene and all that. I hope that answers the question.
Are there any other stereotypes that anyone wants to raise here? Jeffrey in the back. And Jeffrey has a stereotype for us that other people would have, right?
Yes, ma'am. Africans are generally assumed to be the entire continent full of black people. If there are whites, they're like Dr. Stevens that's doing research or they're getting gold. What's your thoughts?
So we'll talk about the racial and ethnic background of Africa. Who wants to address that?
Africa as a continent has a mix of everyone. I call myself Coco. I don't sound black, so I'm Coco, and I have a cousin who is as white as Dr. Stevens is, and he's from Sierra Leone. His mom and dad are Sierra Leonean, and that's just how they all look. So we do come in various colors, but we're all African. So people think we only have the darkest of the darks in Africa, or we have midnight looking people. I'm going to use the terminology, I'm not sure everybody knows, but we have red bones, we have light-skinned people. So we have different looking people in Africa. We're not all just one shade black. I don't know if that answers your question a little bit, Jeffrey.
Yeah, Africa, I think one of the main important things I want everyone in this room to know before y'all leave is that Africa is like extremely, extremely diverse. You have all different types of skin tones, all different types of hair textures. It's just extremely diverse. And like growing up in elementary school, middle school, I get the same question. Even here in college, somebody asks me here, they go, "Oh, you're too light skinned to be African." But I have, like my mom, she's lighter than me. I have cousins who are lighter than me who stay in Nigeria 24/7. But it's important for y'all to know that Africans aren't all dark skinned, or it's just as a country and a continent, everyone is extremely, extremely diverse. It's not, simple to just one skin tone.
Maybe Dr. Stevens would want to speak to the ethnic and racial diversity or language diversity. Okay.
I would like to add a bit to the discussion about poverty, if that's all right. There were some very perceptive comments about inequality of income distribution, which is absolutely right on. Nigeria is incredibly wealthy, with as Dr. O says, seventh, or when I was there, they were ranked seventh. Today, they're ranked 8th world producers of oil. But the income from that oil is controlled by a small portion of the population. The film industry and others like cement and groundnuts and cotton have enriched many others, but there is still desperate poverty in much of Nigeria and much of the rest of Africa, where the family income could be measured as less than $1 per day. You know, and so this is a very serious issue. The wealth is there, but inequality of income distribution or wealth distribution is a major problem.
And anyways, this is the legacy of colonialism, correct?
I would say so.
Yeah. When we look at a map from those in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, most of them aren't black. Most people in that country you wouldn't even tell they're Africans by just looking at their skin tone. So by answering your questions, I would say it's not every African that is black. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic.
When I hear some of these stereotypes, I actually understand exactly where y'all are coming from, because I travel to Nigeria every 2 years, and I see exactly where y'all are coming from, because when I go to Delta and I get on the airplane, if I'm lucky enough to get a direct flight straight to Nigeria, it's like the airports over there, because there's 2 airports in Nigeria. There's one in Lagos and there's one in Port Harcourt. Port Harcourt is a small airport, and that's the one my mom always chooses for us to land in, because it's smaller and just a little bit safer. It's extremely dangerous to land in Lagos fresh off an American airplane, because everyone thinks Americans have money, so they'll try to rob you. But what I'm saying is, Port Harcourt, like, the airports are not like up to par. Like, if you go to an airport here, you'll see computers, it's real fancy, it's really nice. They still have like modems, and they still use paper ID. It's not like, there's no AC. Just my personal experience, when I landed in the airport, it's hot. So I understand what you mean. The wealth is not distributed equally at all. You can say that you can say some of the people are poor. It's like if you have money, you're able to do things that others aren't. Like here, if you don't have money, you kind of have a chance, go to school. Everything, when you were real young, you start paying for everything. Like nothing's free, you have to pay for school. Like how we start paying for school, when we start college, they have to start just to learn their ABCs. And my dad actually opened up a school near our Pacific Village. So we have a school with our last name on it, and that's for like all the kids in the rural area, just to learn like their ABCs, learn how to read, just start off real young. It's not a college, it's like elementary school. So I understand what y'all mean, because when you look at, even when we're driving, the roads are really bumpy. There's no stops, like street lights, like no red light to say go, no green light to say go. They don't have that. So it's a lot of traffic jam. Like they don't have really good construction on some of the roads. So I understand where y'all come from. My personal experience, I see it for myself.
Thank you. I think we need to move on to the last phase of our discussion. Many of our panelists have tried to sort of show you another side of those perceived stereotypes, but they each also want to speak to the experiences of their culture. So we're going to let them speak to particular issues of importance. And we'll let them sort of go down the line here or choose when they want to speak on a particular issue.
I know this is kind of backtracking, but to answer what Dr. Stevens said about the wealth distribution, it all comes back from colonial times. If Europe, from my perspective, this is not a fact, this is just my opinion. From the time Europe invaded the continent of Africa and Spain went, and then the United States tried to slide through there too, the economic stance of Africa has changed, there's no type of equilibrium to it. And when I say that, what I mean is the Europeans kind of came and gave different light to how Africans can distribute wealth. I think from my perspective, they brought greed, they brought like it's all for me, like me and Midas, that's what my mom calls it. It's all for me, everything for me. So if before in Africa, it was just like how the Indian people lived in the United States. It was a bartering type of system. If I have some fish and Dr. Stevens has some rice, but he needs some fish and I need some rice, we swap it out, and that's how things work. So everything stayed everything was equal. Everybody was equal. There was nobody that was richer. There was nobody that was poorer than the other person. Because if I saw my neighbor needed something, I'd say, oh, hey, Dominique, you need some rice? I have some rice. You need some fish? I have something. You need some seasoning? That's how you did it all. Families shared with families. And it came to a point that after everybody was colonized, everybody started to want to grab everything for themselves. So there was no more bartering systems. Now it was everything had to be through a pesos. You had to pay for something that you needed. You couldn't even go to your neighbors. So from my perspective again, I believe that the poverty in Africa has remained the way it is because of the lights and the fashion in which the Europeans came to the continents of Africa and how they went ahead and state what they believe they kind of built the continent itself.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens.
Can I just offer one further bit on this issue? You were also making some generalizations that we ought to be cautious about. There was a tremendous variety of societies and social and political structures in traditional Africa. And in kingdoms, there were some very, very wealthy people at the top and some very, very poor people at the bottom. And that was tradition. But what you're describing is reciprocity, which operated at all levels, and you're absolutely right. But we have to be careful about generalizing throughout whole societies. Herders and hunters and gatherers knew only that kind of reciprocal relationships, and they needed it in order to survive. But the settled agriculturalists who had developed highly stratified societies had a history of the wealthy and the poor. And that's an ancient industry, so we have to be careful about our generalizations. One other thing that a lot of students get very surprised about, and some get angry, there could not have been a slave trade without African assistance. And some of the powerful kings along the coast who controlled vast territories allowed the slave trade to operate. This is another myth about a misconception about Africa. We have to bring out the negative as well as the positive.
I'm very happy that Dr. Stevens brought that slavery issue because sometimes we found a lot of resistance here in the United States because a lot of people believe that slavery existed because we sold our people. The regular person wasn't really involved in those transactions, like Dr. Stevens just said. If it was done, it was done without, the willingness of the general population. So if that happened, it has nothing to do with a regular person like the type of people you have in your schools, in your neighborhoods. They have nothing to do with those horrible transactions. On the contrary, they're still suffering from it to this day. So one more thing that is very important for us to know: if slaves that have been sold, those terrible transactions were not made on a regular basis. It was just in a high strata of the society. It wasn't done by regular people. Something that I wanted to talk about before I go, because this is something that is very current today. I even have my colleagues stopping me in the hallway about disease in Africa. So one of the things that we hear is that, all diseases come from Africa. No, there's sick people in Africa, there's sick people everywhere because it's part of our imperfection as humans. We get sick, but it's not because someone is from Africa that they're going to contaminate you. Please don't think that everybody's carrying AIDS or Ebola. And it's not true. These are extremely debilitating diseases. Someone is not going to be walking in a hallway in your school carrying those diseases. So, and think about it. If someone stopped you and asked you if you have I don't know what kind of contaminating disease, how would you feel? But trust me, my colleague asked me on Monday, where are you from? So I said, Cameroon. How long have you been here? There's some kind of inquiry coming from your friends to try to ascertain if you have one of those diseases. How long have you been here? Because if they know you just came from Africa, then they're going to be kind of afraid to talk to you, to be near you. All Africans are not sick.
Thank you. Who else wants to share something of their culture and their experiences? Stephanie wants to.
Well, I just want to tell you some stories because I know there's years. Well, not stories, just personal experiences. Like, one experience is when I first got off the airport and there were a couple of people surrounding our car. Oh yeah, I was scared. My uncle was driving and they all had their hands out like this and they wanted us to give them money. And it's just like horrible. Like they just think because you come from America you have money. You have money. Even like your own cousins. Like I'll be arguing with my cousins. Like I have best of both worlds. I can come here and tell y'all, you know, our stereotypes, and I also go back there and I argue with them about their stereotypes with Americans. So it's like there's no, when there's trouble here, you call 911 and the cops come. When there's trouble there is no 911, there is no cops. Everybody's family handles how they handle their trouble. Like if you get caught stealing something here, you're probably gonna go to jail. If you get caught here, you're gonna go to jail. You're gonna probably catch a charge. Over there, if you get caught stealing, they'll cut your arm off. And I've seen them walking around with no arms. Like, it's just, you just gotta be thankful for how you have a civilized country and how things here are just, you're just lucky. And I know the roads were just really, really bad. It was so jam-packed. I always tell myself if I get older and I'm able to like start home business, I actually want to go there and start construction and just really try to help the roads out so people can drive cars.
And I have something to say. Unfortunately, my family is wealthy. So you have poor people and you have rich people. I don't know where you have been, but there are some rich places in Nigeria. Now, I'm sorry that you've been through some random roads, but the roads that I see, we have highways and stuff. So I don't know what you're talking about. But there are some rich parts, okay? So maybe you have been in the village area, I'm not sure. But you need to find your place like closer to the city. Because you keep talking about the negative parts. There are some positive parts. We talked about the perception, good perceptions. Yes, there are poor people there. But you also need to talk about, because that's what they think. I'm not saying that it's not there. But there are highways and there are roads and there are malls. But that's what we're talking about. Yes, you can talk about the poor part. I do understand. But you're just talking about the poor part. That's not what we're here to talk about.
I know a number of people have actually raised the issue of the importance of family, and I would actually like to ask people to maybe talk about family a little bit. I know a number of my women's studies students are here, and that might be something significant to them, but that's also something that's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, and maybe that could be something that helps us understand the diversity of our lives. Anyone want to think about family experiences?
Sure. Family is very important in Nigeria. I mean, usually like here you have to like, maybe sometimes you have to go to ancestry.com to find who your ancestors were, but well, mostly there, you can just go through relatives and family members, because usually the family is not like just single family. Like it, well, from the region I'm from, they usually have polygamy, let's say 4 wives, and also you find that everybody knows everybody. Like usually the family stays together. They don't just like get up one day and leave the family or decide to run away. Even if they do, they might come back and still find their roots within the society they are. Like, yeah, that's how the mostly household people live.
Dr. O?
Yes, we talk about family. I always tell people that because of family ties, one institution that holds for a longer period than here is the marriage institution. When you get married to somebody in Nigeria, you're not only just getting married to that guy or to the lady, you're actually getting married to the family. When you have a problem, the family comes to hand to solve problems for you. When your husband is not doing well, even the mother of the husband, the mother-in-law is the one that will come in on your side against his son. Because it is a taboo for you to get married and 1 year, 2 years, you come back and say you want to have a divorce. It is a family disgrace. So family is actually interested in you developing your life and they help you. You have children that need to go to school and you are not available. You have family members who are going to take up these kids and help train them. It is a pride for the family, for you to have somebody in your area that is very educated. One thing about family is that education is number one. You can't say anything in any society if you are not educated. You have to have that education. That's why everybody must go to school. Even though you have to pay for the school, you pay for kindergarten, to primary school, to high school, you have to pay. But if you pay, your family do not sacrifice to get you that education, you have no say in society. And so you find that most of Africans that come in here, they come in because of education. And they take it very seriously. How do you send back to Africa to say you went to America and you were not able to get a degree? It sounds strange. Whenever you come in here, it's a place where you have the opportunity and you work hard that you've been trained from beginning, you get a degree. You work a little bit harder, you get 2 degrees. So families will call you. If I go home, if my parents is sitting down here, if your parents want to talk to my parents, they call my parents by what I have achieved. It says this is the mother of doctor, this is the mother of lawyer. They call and say, oh, the father of the doctor. The father. So when you are in a society and your kid is not going to school, you have no say. The family is always on top that says, oh, in your family, how many lawyers do you have? How many doctors do you have? How many engineers do you have? So the family is really, really going to help you develop all these things that we're talking about.
Dr. O mentioned the importance of education, and I just want to ask a quick question as we are sort of thinking about the significance of this panel. Everyone look out amongst each other. How many of you know more than one language? Raise your hand. You know more than one. How many on this panel know more than one language? This is the diversity that we're talking about, right? And this is the importance of essentially these kinds of educational opportunities to sort of open up our discussions. We are often limited by language, by knowledge, by our communities, and the kind of knowledge that we have. And here we have a group of students who have had very diverse experiences, and the differences as well as the similarities are showing, that kind of diversity. I want to know that we also have a very strong African Student Association on this campus. I know a number of these students are part of the African Student Association. My understanding is they have an event coming up, Cooking with the Taste of Africa, on November 18th. Is that still scheduled?
Yes, we're still working on that, but you're going to see major flyers. It's supposed to be a big event. We're basically, the first example, we're probably going to branch out to the community and see if they can cook a certain type of food and make it like a contest. But if we can't find that many people to do it, we'll try to see if some of us can cook different, types of food from different regions. So you can taste and not realize, okay, African country, which is a continent, only has one dish. But okay, you can eat something from Nigeria, you can eat something from Gabon, you can eat something from different places. Just kind of figure out that we do have different types of food. So that's what we're trying to do.
And the reason I raise that is because I hope this will be an ongoing conversation, that we actually want questions from the audience now, but we also hope that you'll go out and participate in these kinds of events and see these kinds of experiences around our community. So with that, let me actually just open it up to the audience. Are there any questions you actually have for our panelists? Any concerns that you want to raise or any issues you'd like to discuss?
Is gay
Make sure you get the lead in the back. She hasn't had a chance. I'll get the analyst here.
Dr. I have a question. So you were talking about the marriage institution in Nigeria. Is it still common for men who are wealthy to have more than one wife? Is that still common?
Well, it's not a common thing to have, but there are two things. By religion, the Islam religion allows you to have at least 4 wives if you can take care of them equally. It has, but for those of us who are Christians, you are not allowed to have more than 1 wife. But if you are a Muslim, by Muslim rights, you are allowed to have more than 1 wife. Education has actually opened the eyes of most of the young people in Nigeria now to the fact that you have more problems with more wives. You know, 1 wife, 1 problem, 2 wives, 2 problems. And in order for you to actually have a peaceful life, it's actually better for you to stick without 1 wife and manage the problem for 1 wife together. When you have 2 of them, I'm telling you, the rich people will have 4 wives. Some of them would play to you that, oh, we are happy. Oh, we are happy to be on here because he gives them money equally. But behind, how do you not say Monday to Sunday is your day with your husband, next Monday to Sunday is another day with somebody else? You will never be happy. Your kids cannot see their father every day because it's not their mother's turn to see their husband. So, really now, it is not an issue. And education has actually taken that away. Even the Muslims now, unless they are really very rich, because the Islamic thing says you have to have money to be able to keep all the wives you have equally entertained. Thank you.
Okay, analyst, yes?
Is gay marriage legal there?
Absolutely not.
Let me just say this. In Nigeria, the Constitution says if you declare yourself as gay, you will face firing squad. That penalty. I want to mention this to you. Right now, if you remember, President Obama went to Sierra Leone, and the president of Sierra Leone said to him, please do not discuss this issue here. We are not developed enough to handle this. Culturally, we do not want, and he just break it up because he made a statement that says we are supposed to give everybody a free chance. And the president says at this time they are not culturally of that level. In Nigeria, you declare that you are gay, you will face experience for marriage court.
And there are some very brave gay rights activists who risk death often to stand up for their vision.
Yes.
And there are other African countries in which being gay is punishable by the jail at best. This is the gorilla in the room, isn't it? When we're at the end of our time, but one of the most pressing problems in Africa. Homosexuality is universal, and it occurs at roughly the same rate in all, I repeat, all human populations, and that includes Africa. There's a lot of evidence that there were tremendously varied cultural attitudes toward homosexuality before the colonial period and before, I was raised Christian, but I will say this, before Christian missionaries came with their interpretation of biblical commandments. And there's solid evidence that the incidents in Uganda and in Nigeria are of Christian origin. The terrible, terrible intolerance. So this is a huge, huge issue, which is going to take a long, long time to resolve. It's a basic issue of human rights. Thank you for raising it.
Thank you, Alicia. Dr. Smedger has a question.
A question for Dr. Stevens. You've been involved in Africa and with Africans for the past 50 years. How have you seen Africa change? What good things have happened and what things need to happen for the entire continent to evolve?
How much time do we have? That's an excellent question, and My trips to Africa have indeed gone on for over 50 years. You were right. I didn't think of it that way. My God. There were great periods of my not going. I didn't go at all during the 1980s, for example. And I went back in the 1990s for several trips and saw great changes. I didn't go back at all in the first decade of this century until 2012. Some of the most profound changes were that English is spoken everywhere now, even in the smallest villages. Electricity is almost everywhere. And the cell phone. The cell phone is ubiquitous. I don't know, I could get into several stories. I was in a very solemn conference with the King of Essia and his advisors, a bunch of elderly, notable, titled elders sitting in his conference room on the floor, because you don't elevate yourself above the level of the king. And they were in their best robes, and they were conferring on various issues. And every so often, a cell phone would go off inside somebody's robes. And they had programmed their cell phones to ring with popular Nigerian songs. It was a very funny sign of modernization. I will stop. Those are the things that I noticed first. Education has not progressed as well as we would have hoped in the 1960s, when Nigeria's universities were the best in Africa. There's a lot of reasons for that, most of them political. Education depends upon the priorities of the government, and indeed a lot that happens in Nigeria, if not everything, depends upon the priorities of the government. Nigeria is an incredibly complex country. Some say impossible to govern. Some say Nigeria should not have been designed the way it was. It ought to have been broken down into a few smaller units. The problems are still huge. The internet is everywhere. Instant communication is everywhere. Blue jeans are everywhere.
Dr. Smedley, you asked how has he seen Africa progress, or what does the continent of Africa need to do to progress? In lately news, we have seen that the Ebola disease is becoming very, very, very prevalent. It's no longer in the 4 countries that it did start in. So what I would say Africa needs to improve upon is the containment of diseases. So if it does start in one area, try to figure out a way to contain it. So maybe get together with some other officials from other nations and try to figure out the best possibilities in regards to containing diseases, as well as informing other Africans in the villages, because my grandmother is in the village and she hates talking on the phone. She doesn't like doing anything that involves technological wise or anything that's modern. So a lot of the people in the villages from my country, in Sierra Leone, they are still stuck in the olden ways. So in order for Africa to move on, not only in my country, in other countries as well, as a continent, it's just we say we don't, some Africans, like my mom say, they don't want European help or Western help in our country. But if the Europeans and America does decide to go as strong nations, does decide to go and help out the continent of Africa, I think it's best to teach them how to better contain diseases when it does happen, how to better organize themselves in educating people how to stay sanitary. Because in Africa, if this is my whole family and we're eating, we all meet, like Americans say, Sunday dinner. There'll be a big bowl of rice, a big bowl of stew, and everybody in my country will sit down and eat from that same bowl. So kind of trying to help out with germs and stuff like that, that would be something that Africa does need to work and do better on.
Point out, and I think Dr. O may be able to reinforce this, but Clearly, Ebola reminds us of global connections. There's no doubt about that. And yet Nigeria has contained Ebola,
Yes.
correct? And so perhaps we might learn a lot from looking to Nigeria. Maybe you could speak more, or Dr. Stevens could speak more to that.
I was going to go in a slightly different direction, and by way of not just to end, but by way of conclusion of this whole discussion. You here in Americus, Georgia, have a wonderful legacy of African involvement in the person of President Jimmy Carter and the Carter Foundation, which is operating in 80 different countries in the world. I don't know how many of those 80 are in Africa, but many, many are. And here is an example right here in your community, which can serve to follow here on your campus.
Thank you. Anyone else want to have any final comments? Looks like we have a question back from Willie.
It's quite natural that y'all students are privileged, I don't want to offend y'all.
You're going to speak up a little, Willie.
Okay, I said it's quite natural that they are privileged to be here because, so many people there and, we only see a small percentage of them coming. When y'all get y'all education, y'all going to move here or y'all going to go back and, bring more? What are y'all plans if y'all getting involved with someone and get married, have kids, they're going to be, y'all going to be torn between two.
Well, I think we have a mix of citizens.
The brain drain issue.
Correct.
My question is, y'all privilege of coming here to get education, what are y'all going to do?
Stephanie has an answer for that.
I'm actually happy that you asked that.
Speak up.
I'm actually happy that you asked that because, well, one of the main things I want to do is that I want to go back, I want to do construction, and also a lot of people, like when you have your culture, they also want you to marry into your same culture. So if I'm going to here, and let's just say I fall in love with an American, I don't know if my mom would be happy with it or, like she would want me to marry in my culture to keep tradition going. So that's one of the main things I would do. Just try to go back, uplift my country, try to make it better. That's one of the main things. Education, definitely, they have to pay from a very young age, maybe open up more schools so kids can just learn how to do simple things like read, write, without just having to pay it all the time. Because I don't think it's fair. Maybe it's because I grew up in America and I didn't have to experience that, but in most other countries you have to start paying for education from the job. So my thing would be maybe start them off without them having to pay so young, and then maybe when they get to the university start paying.
Dr. Stevens mentioned that there actually has been a brain drain from Africa. At the same time, we have these new global connections, and we have more and more people going back and forth across the Atlantic. And so I think these are long-term questions for us.
Yeah. To add on that, it's been a problem that guys coming over here, then they're not going ahead, making the effort to go back to home and help them out over there. So it's been an issue. Dr. Stevens called it brain drain. A lot of bright kids come study over here, but they get the education, but don't go ahead, don't make the other stable going back home and helping the guys over there. So most of us being brought up, we didn't know right now, I'm gonna have to help two communities. Go back home first, help them out, but also ask at the education in America. How am I gonna help America also?
Also, it's not like a lot of people come here, study, go back, do some work, do some constructions, and not only that, like a year ago, I read a book. There was this engineer. He didn't go to school, but in Malawi, he built Yeah, a windmill by himself with just sticks and bicycle chain and just some fan. So you see, there are a lot of talents there. So it's not only we come, learn, and do it for ourselves. Like we learn and go back and help others. Like people have different choices, you know.
Dr. Silva says, like me, being here. I am actually here because the privileges at the time was not available for my kids to go to school. Like he said, we have this situation where the government dictates, and whoever is in government, whether his priorities coincide with the priorities of others, doesn't matter. His priority is number one. If he has the priority for education, yes. If you have the priority for social, if you have the priority for investing, there's nothing you can do, whether you want to have your education and you want to go back. If you are going from here, you want to go to a safe place. Until the area is actually developed to be safe, the only thing you can do is be going back and forth. And the privilege that I have to be a citizen here gives me an opportunity. I have a hospital of my own still running in Nigeria, employed some doctors to work for me. I have to go every year to renew the license, right? And I go there once a month, once in a year, or twice in a year with my wife, and we run the place with the people we employ. This is our own contribution to helping the society. But you cannot just park up one day and go to a place where protection is not there, your life is not safe, you don't know what will happen the next minute. Until you have a stable government, you will not be able to just transfer and say you are going. We all want to go back. And I'm going back very soon, everybody. So that's the issue.
Right.
Thank you.
We actually are coming to an end, but I would encourage you to talk. Dominic and Charthine also have some ideas here that they would like to share. So for those who actually want to talk more, maybe come up to the front. But we all want to congratulate and thank our panelists.